StudyIQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
क्या ये CAG के लिए उपयुक्त है कि वो चर्चा के विषय बने?
CAG prefers to work silently, prepare the report, submit to parliament, then wait for what happens.
शायद 2013 से पहले का ऐसा कोई दृष्टांत नहीं है जहां की CAG ने पब्लिकली जाके इतने इंटरव्यूज दिए हों, इतनी बात कही हो।
CAG never created a hype. Hype has been entirely created by the and by the
2013 में जब 2G की स्कैम का रिपोर्ट आई थी तो डिप्टी CAG फ्लैश कर रही थी उस रिपोर्ट को मीडिया में।
It is because of the instigation by the
Whatever that exceptional happened was on account of the circumstances that existed.
after the event. You are trying to defend now. Where is the secretary who takes that initiative and got the confidence to meet CAG and discuss this and convince him? He is, after all, one of the senior officers of IAS.
I think my predecessors raised these points. They are on record. It's there on the file.
Not in time.
नमस्कार, बातचीत के 9वें एपिसोड में आपका स्वागत है। आज हमारे साथ हैं श्री शेष कुमार। ये वर्ष 1982 के इंडियन ऑडिट एंड अकाउंट सर्विस के अधिकारी हैं। 2015 में ये रिटायर हुए और जब ये रिटायर हुए उस समय ये डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑडिट थे कंट्रोलर एंड ऑडिटर जनरल के ऑफिस में। नमस्कार, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है यहाँ पर। सबसे पहले तो मैं जानना चाहूँगा कि आपने जब ये सिविल सेवा ज्वाइन की ऑडिट में तो आपको पता था कि ऑडिट सर्विस में किस प्रकार का कार्य आप करेंगे?
नहीं, मुझे
आइडिया
इसकी तो आइडिया कुछ खास थी नहीं।
हाँ।
सही माने में बताऊं तो IAS के बाद IPS के बाद द फर्स्ट ऑफ द सिविल सर्विसेज कहें तो IAS आता है वहाँ पर।
अच्छा, ओके।
तो उसको हमने चूज कर लिया।
देखिए, आज जो हमारे दर्शक होंगे उसमें कई लोग ऐसे होंगे जो कि इस वर्ष या आने वाले वर्षों में सिविल सेवा परीक्षा के लिए अपीयर होंगे। तो उसमें से कई लोगों को, जैसे आपको जानकारी नहीं थी, कई लोगों को जानकारी नहीं होती कि ऑडिट सर्विस में होता क्या उसमें आवश्यकताएं हैं, क्या सुविधाएं हैं, क्या परेशानियां हैं। तो इसके संदर्भ में अगर आप संक्षिप्त में कुछ बता सकें कि सेवा का स्वरूप क्या है, जिससे जब वो चयनित करें तो सिर्फ इस वजह से चयनित ना करें IAS था,
नंबर 1 है
क्या सेवा में क्या आवश्यकताएं होती हैं या क्या सुविधाएं होती हैं या क्या किस प्रकार का कार्य होता है?
See, we choose civil services primarily, I feel कि भाई कुछ लोगों तक सेवाएं पहुंचाए जा सके, लोगों को कुछ सुविधाएं पहुंचाए जा सके, लोगों की कुछ परेशानियां हैं उनको दूर की जा सकें, करवाई जा सके हमारे द्वारा। और साथ साथ में हम थोड़े सेल्फिश भी होते हैं, कुछ भी कहें। कुछ प्रेस्टीज और कुछ अथॉरिटी, कुछ पोजीशन ऑफ इम्पोर्टेंस भी हम चाहते हैं।
बिल्कुल।
सिविल सर्वेंट्स जब सिविल सर्विस एग्जाम देते हैं तो नेचुरल है कि IAS फर्स्ट प्रेफरेंस बनता है। अब IAS की जो रिक्वायरमेंट्स है, रिक्वायरमेंट्स इज बेसिकली व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर सिविल सर्विस। ग्रेजुएट काफ़ी है जी। उसके बाद हमारी सर्विस में काफ़ी मशक्क़त की ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है। बहुत डिटेल ट्रेनिंग हमारी एक नेशनल एकेडमी ऑफ ऑडिट एंड अकाउंट्स है शिमले में। तो न केवल वो ब्यूटीफुल सराउंडिंग्स में स्थित है, लेकिन उनकी बड़ी प्रोफेशनल ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स 2 फेजेस में की जाती हैं, जिसमें कोई भी बैकग्राउंड का अगर हमारा ग्रेजुएट जाए तो वो हर तरफ से अकाउंटिंग, ऑडिटिंग, इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स, इंटरनेशनल ऑडिटिंग, ऑल टाइप्स ऑफ ऑडिट्स एंड अकाउंट्स रिलेटेड मैटर्स इन एडिशन टू कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, उसमें काफ़ी ट्रेनिंग दी जाती है और एग्ज़ाम्स भी उनको पास करना पड़ता है। उसके बाद ऑन द जॉब ट्रेनिंग हमारे यहाँ होती है। तो एक बार ट्रेनिंग वहाँ ले लिया तो थियोरेटिकली इक्विप हो जाते हैं। बट जैसे आप शायद एग्री करेंगे, अल्टीमेटली इट इज़ द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ दैट इंडिविजुअल। उनकी कितनी सिंसियरिटी है, एप्लीकेशन है और अपने में जिज्ञासा है सीखने की और आगे बढ़ने की और कुछ कंट्रीब्यूट करने की, तो वो उस पर भी काफ़ी निर्भर रहता है कितना सक्सेसफुल ये
बिल्कुल
ऑफिसर।
तो ये जो सेवा है इसमें सामान्य रूप से पोस्टिंग कहाँ पर होती है, किस कार्य के लिए होती है?
The IAD, the Indian Audit and Accounts Department, is headed by Comptroller Auditor General of India. He is appointed by the President of India on the recommendation of the Prime Minister as things stand today. He is there for 65 years or 6 years his tenure, and his emoluments, conditions of service, everything is protected. He cannot be removed from service. He is equal to a Supreme Court judge for all practical purposes. सो फ्रीडम ऑफ टेन्योर, फ्रीडम ऑफ अथॉरिटी, एक्टिविटी, वो सब दी गई है उनको, सुविधा दी गई है। उनके ऑफिस की एक्सपेंडिचर भी चार्ज एक्सपेंडिचर बोलते हैं, मतलब पार्लियामेंट की अप्रूवल की आवश्यकता नहीं है। यहाँ तक कि हमारे जो फाउंडर है, द आर्किटेक्ट ऑफ इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, बाबा साहेब अम्बेडकर जी ने भी कहा है डिबेट्स इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में कि CAG is perhaps the most important functionary under the constitution during the time this subject was being discussed. So इनके देख रेख में it's a single person driven organization. इनके अंडर में we have about 9 deputy CAGs who are secretary level officers and about 13 special secretary level officers, about 22 officers at the apex advising, assisting the CAG. And we have about 600 IA and AS officers across the country and about 50 to 60,000 staff spread all over the states in the country. And we have offices abroad. Lest I may forget, मैं ये भी कहना चाहूँगा कि CAG की काफ़ी पहचान है इंटरनेशनल ऑडिट फ्रेटर्निटी में भी। फॉर एग्जांपल यूनाइटेड नेशंस बोर्ड ऑफ एक्सटर्नल ऑडिटर्स में मेंबर रह चुके हैं, IT कमेटी के चेयरमैन रह चुके हैं यूनाइटेड नेशंस के, वर्ल्ड फूड प्रोग्राम, वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, ऐसे कुछ भी इंस्टीट्यूशंस बताइए आप, विच एवर ऑफ इम्पोर्टेंस, ही हैज़ बीन एंड हिज टीम्स हैव बीन auditing those organizations and have that opportunity also is provided by this service.
Okay.
Lastly, there are some offices abroad. About 6 to 8 offices, about 10 to 12 officers get a chance for getting posted abroad. And basically the idea is that they should examine the audits, expenditure of the missions abroad. So that is another attraction. That apart, within India, we have plenty of opportunities to go on deputation to Government of India, state governments, autonomous bodies, and not only in finance, but even in the executive positions. So it offers a wide gamut of exposure and gives a lot of confidence to the officers to not only understand, study, and also contribute, provided they have that application and they have that inclination and sincerity.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think जो दर्शक हैं, जिसमें जो एस्पिरेंट्स हैं, जो सिविल सेवा में आना चाहते हैं, उनको आज एक अच्छा ज्ञान हो गया होगा कि इंडियन ऑडिट एंड अकाउंट सर्विस में बहुत ज़्यादा संभावनाएं हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं। तो बड़ी अच्छी सर्विस है और शेष कुमार जी का स्वयं का अनुभव है, उन्होंने सर्विस को एंजॉय किया, वो इसमें रहे और आज भी उसको बड़ी अच्छी तरह याद करते हैं। अब ज़रा थोड़ा सा हम सेंसिटिव इश्यूज़ की ओर आज जाना चाहेंगे। पहले जो CAG की रिपोर्ट्स आती थी, बड़ी शांतिपूर्वक तरीके से वो पार्लियामेंट में सबमिट हो जाती थी और उसके फिर वो PAC जैसा कि व्यवस्था है वो चर्चा करती थी। सचिव के रूप में मैं भी गया हूँ PAC के सामने और अपनी बात हम प्रस्तुत करते थे और अल्टीमेटली जो भी एक्शन होता था वो कैबिनेट के सामने प्रस्तुत होता था। तो बड़ी शांतिपूर्वक चर्चा था और CAG की शायद ज़्यादा चर्चा भी नहीं होती थी। वर्ष 1913 से CAG बड़े चर्चित हो गए। तो पहला तो प्रश्न आपसे ये करना चाहूँगा, हम विस्तार से भी जाएंगे, क्या ये CAG के लिए उपयुक्त है कि वो चर्चा का विषय बने?
आपने बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण विषय उठाया है। इसको थोड़ी गंभीर रूप से सोचने की और रेस्पॉन्ड करने की आवश्यकता है। थोड़ी हम देखते हैं CAG का रोल क्या है। सी देयर आर टू व्यूज। सी CAG's report, CAG gives, we are talking about audit functions only.
Yes.
See, he has accounts and entitlement and international audit functions. So many other things are there.
But audit.
But you have raised issue about the CAG audit reports and should they be in public domain, discussed in such a manner. So CAG, what does he do? See, in terms of audit, see, subjects are selected after thorough risk assessment. Once subjects are selected, there is an entire process. There are guidelines, there are auditing standards, and it is vetted, approved at various levels in the organization right up to CAG. About 200 audit reports are probably approved every year by CAG across the country, including states. So subjects are varied. You have asked a question related to 2013 in particular.
No, let me clarify. मैं अभी इशू पर नहीं आ रहा हूँ 2013 क्या था, मैं थोड़ा सिद्धांत की बात कर रहा हूँ. In principle, whereas CAG reports have to come in public domain, but should CAG himself become public? That is the question that I am raising. The issues will come later, whether those issues were correct, right, wrong, that will come much later. Right now, it's more of a principle. Is the job of CAG, क्या ये CAG का काम है कि वो अपनी रिपोर्ट पार्लियामेंट को सबमिट करे या उसके अतिरिक्त जाके टीवी इंटरव्यूज भी दे, पूरा व्याख्यान भी दे, पूरा उसको समझाए? इसका औचित्य क्या है, ये मैं जानना चाह रहा हूँ.
CAG के रिपोर्ट्स तो पार्लियामेंट में जाते हैं, जाने चाहिए, जाते रहे हैं। अब देखिए CAG रिपोर्ट में सब्जेक्ट्स क्या हैं, किस तरह से प्रस्तुत किए गए हैं और इस पर चर्चा कैसे हो रही है आम जनता में, पब्लिक में। इस पे 2-3 इश्यूज आते हैं। नंबर 1, इसी मीडिया प्लेस अ बिग पार्ट। Number 2, political issues also. Some issues have political implications, and political parties are waiting for an opportunity to take such opportunities and exploit, and and their ultimate purpose is the win at hustings at any cost. So there is this danger of political exploitation and also media hype of some of the subjects. And let me also share with you, CAG has been very publicity reticent rather. मतलब publicity कभी चाहते ही नहीं है, कोई भी CAG हो, 2013 हो या 1970 हो या अभी भी हो. So CAG prefers, that institution I am talking about, prefers to work silently, behind the scenes, prepare the report, submit to Parliament, then wait for what happens in the Parliament, assist the Parliament committees. But sometimes what happens, because the media or the political parties, or I am sorry to say, many of the senior bureaucrats also who are concerned, they don't read the reports completely. The media picks up only selected parts which which will generate TRPs or which will create hype or create some sort of headlines. So what the issues that are raised in CAG's report otherwise are missed completely, and those are highlighted. And as by force, CAG is forced to defend those whatever has come in the public. So that is why you may be perhaps surprised to know that CAG never had a public relations department till very recently, till maybe about 7-8 years back or 10 years back. So CAG is conscious not to have any public interaction. But once we get this sort of a avalanche and this sort of a response, which was never intended, never expected, then the CAG has to react. CAG or his officers, in however reticent a way, however subdued a way, they do respond, and I feel they should respond, and they should defend what their reports are trying to convey.
So, in your point of view, apart from furnishing report to the Parliament, CAG should also come out into the open and defend it if they are questioned.
Yes, I feel if it is a policy decision of the CAG ultimately. If you ask my personal view, I think we should come and defend.
Okay, so whereas it is under a constitutional duty of the CAG to present a report to the Parliament, it is the constitutional duty of the CAG to assist the Public Accounts Committee while doing that. And it's also laid out that he would hold a press conference. But the manner in which press conferences were held in 2013, the manner in which it is quite natural, as you rightly said, कि political party के लिए या कुछ interested party के लिए, मीडिया के लिए ये आवश्यक है कि वो ढूंढेंगे उसमें कौन सी जो है उनको TRP अच्छी दे, publicity ज़्यादा मिले, उनको political advantage ज़्यादा मिले. But for a CAG to display it in a manner so as to roadshow what's going on, to highlight the wrong, the point that I was trying to make was there are many wrongs. Obviously, the job of the CAG is to find out कि कहाँ त्रुटियां हुई हैं, ऑडिट के थ्रू पॉइंट आउट करें. क्या उसको हाईलाइट करना पब्लिक में, ये उसका उद्देश्य होना चाहिए, नहीं होना चाहिए? क्योंकि एक माहौल बना, मैं वापस जा रहा हूँ 2013 में जब ये रिपोर्ट आई तो माहौल ये बन गया कि आप कुछ भी करिए उसमें प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है आगे. कुछ भी करिए आप, सही गलत मैं रिपोर्ट पे तो बाद में आऊँगा, हो सकती है. तो इससे एक माहौल बन गया. एक वो क्या काम है CAG का ऑडिट का माहौल बनाना? शायद 2013 से पहले का ऐसा कोई दृष्टांत नहीं है जहां की CAG ने पब्लिकली जाके इतने इंटरव्यूज दिए हों, इतनी बात कही हो. तो इस पे कभी कभी लोग प्रश्न करते हैं कि क्या इसकी आवश्यकता थी, क्योंकि CAG अकाउंटेबल तो पार्लियामेंट को और किसी को नहीं है. CAG की अकाउंटेबिलिटी अगर किसी को है तो पार्लियामेंट को किसी और को नहीं है. तो instead of talking to the parliament or the committees, going out in public and making statements, some of them created a lot of problems. Rather than merely, आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं कि उनको डिफेंड तो करना ही, अगर उनको कोई अटैक कर रहा है, रिपोर्ट को कोई अटैक कर रहा है या रिपोर्ट को गलत इंटरप्रेट कर रहा है, तो CAG का काम है ये बताना. बट उसको पब्लिकली डिस्प्ले करना, ये डिस्प्ले शब्द इंपॉर्टेंट है. आपको स्मरण होगा कि 2013 में जब 2G की स्कैम का रिपोर्ट आई थी तो डिप्टी CAG फ्लैश कर रही थी उस रिपोर्ट को मीडिया में, और जो शब्दावली का उस समय उपयोग किया गया क्या वो it is in the fitness of things for a deputy CAG to make such an expression, to make such a report? I think CAG is more of a typical bureaucrat than a bureaucrat himself, in the sense, with a straight face, you say what you found, period. Thereafter, you don't have to display anything as it was done. What is your, आपकी क्या उसमें मत है?
सर्वप्रथम मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि मैं यहाँ पर मेरे व्यक्तिगत रूप में
जी
आया हुआ
जी,
और मैं एक सेवानिवृत्त अधिकारी हूँ। सो CAG की क्या पॉलिसी होनी चाहिए, CAG क्या पॉलिसी बनाते हैं, वो CAG पर हम छोड़ देते हैं। CAG को इतना तो हमें उनकी गरिमा रखनी चाहिए उस संस्था की। तो दे आर ऑल्सो रिस्पॉन्सिबल पीपल, सो दे हैव देयर ओन पॉलिसीज ऑफ हाउ टू हैंडल प्रेस, हाउ टू inform press, how to brief press. Ultimately, you see what happens is CAG reports are meant for whom? Of course, they go for the Public Accounts Committee and Committee on Public Undertakings, but it's for also common people and parliamentarians. This has to be in the language they understand. And it has to be explained in a proper manner, in a simpler manner. So that is why there have been many instances where CAG's office has tried for smaller publications, concise reports called naughty books, or other forms of press briefs, small briefs for the press to quickly understand. The press doesn't have the time to read the entire report, but reports are presented. So reports have to be covered and are covered again in a peculiar manner in the way the press wants it. So that is why I think it was a conscious decision during that time that the senior officers of the department should hold a small press conference with a limited press brief. That is what I am aware of. But then let me correct you on one point, one factual point. It was not the 2G report that was probably flashed. It was probably the Commonwealth Games report. And it was not flashed out of intention or out of desire by the presenter who presented the report. It was because the press, the media in that room, they were clamoring, please show us the report, we are not able to see, please show us, take it. It is because of the instigation by the media that few seconds that report probably must have been showed to the cameras. But that doesn't mean that there was no press conference, there was no press brief, and that this is the standard for every report by the CAG. I think
that is the point. It was treated as an exception, and that is why the questions arose about that.
No, I have explained now the background.
Because the exception, because similar reports were coming, both TG, coal scam, but in a particular case, this report was flashed and photographs taken and showed all over the place.
See, 2G and the coal report was never flashed. That you can take it from me. I have been in service during that time. It is in the case of Commonwealth Games report, on a particular request and clamor by the media, only to show that report it was shown.
So
that is all.
If I understand you correctly, the hype that was created at that point in time, CAG had virtually no role to play in that. It was on account of the clamor by the media, by the politicians, that it came to light. CAG could not have possibly behaved in a manner different from what it did at that point in time. Is my understanding correct?
May I understand a little better?
What I am trying to say here is that was a very exceptional period for CAG,
yes,
as was for the country.
Yes.
So your contention is that whatever that exceptional happened was on account of the circumstances that existed. It wouldn't have happened otherwise.
No, on that, permit me to say a few sentences. See, let us take the 2G report or the coal report. See, in both the reports, the media lapped up only those astronomical figures of 1,76,000 crores and 1,86,000 crores and said this is the loss computed by CAG, nation has lost this money and all that. But I wonder how many of these press people or even the senior officers or politicians or if I may add humorously, how many of our own IAS colleagues have read those reports completely? I'm not sure. See, if you read those reports and see the follow-up action, see, yes, because of the media hype or whatever it is, one matter went right up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court cancelled the allocations and licenses. So, obviously, the conclusions in the report have been supported by no less than the Honorable Supreme Court. That is first point. Second point, there are so many other, procedural allocation issues or the bungling in administrative allocation of either the spectrum or the allocation of coal blocks. You have been the coal secretary. So that has been highlighted in a big way in the two reports, and those are not disputed by anybody.
No,
those facts.
Let me come here, because since you mentioned me as co-secretary, I have disputed them. And no one has come and corrected that. Let me explain this to you. The calculations made by the then CAG in terms of determining what was the notional loss, those calculations were incorrect. Why? Because for determining any loss, you have to work out what is the revenue and what is the expenditure. In terms of expenditure, I'm taking only one point, it can be discussed elaborately. The one point was that the cost of mining was taken as an average cost of mining, which is totally incorrect. Because anyone who understands coal sector, I understood a bit of it, would know that it depends on the depth of the place where the coal exists. And the deeper you go, the costlier it is. So the cost of mining varies from 300 rupees to 3,000 rupees per metric ton. And taking an average cost and calculating it, the loss on that is absolutely wrong. And no one has come back to me on that. So I'm on record to say, I've written about it, that the calculations were incorrect and no one looked at it. Someone should have looked at it. So it will be wrong to say that the calculations made by CAG in the CAG report, and I had the mortification of going through every word of that report, and I've picked up points very clearly where the calculations are incorrect because the assumptions are wrong. If the assumption is this, the cost, there were many other assumptions that were wrong. I'm only pointing out the most glaring one. However, the hype, that's the point that I was trying to bring in the beginning. When you create that hype, then you create those errors, and those errors get overlooked. Second example, I'm now talking of a Supreme Court judgment. Supreme Court judgment in its main body, says very clearly that we are not looking into underground mines. They're not. And in the ultimate decision, they say those were cancelled. CAG talks about post-2004 coal mines. Supreme Court goes on to cancel all those mines given before. So what I'm saying is I'm not determining who's right, who's wrong. The question is the initial question that I raised of hype. The political parties and media are okay for creating hype, and that's their job, as you rightly said. But if the CAG joins in that debate and enables that hype, that's the problem. So that's where I wanted to know from your point of view, from now as a retired officer of the CAG and on your personal level, should the CAG have contributed to that hype? That's the point that I'm trying to make. I understand that each CAG has to clarify if he's questioned. But if you contribute to that hype, is your point that he did not contribute to the hype? Or is your point that he was right in contributing to that hype?
Wonderful questions. Let me first clarify that I am here as on my personal basis. That is, I am a retired IAS officer. I have more than passing familiarity with these subjects. Having said that, let me clearly say that CAG never created a hype. Hype has been entirely created, so let me finish. Hype has been entirely created by the media and by the political parties. And I repeat once again that whatever has been the conclusions of CAG, whether in the coal report or in the 2G report, have been upheld by no less than Supreme Court. I only see that point. And I'm not here to defend each point of calculation or computation by CAG for obvious reasons. I have not come prepared with all this data to counter. But I can still, with my memory and more than passing familiarity, I can say that CAG, it is an accepted auditing standard and an accepted practice of CAG that whatever CAG writes is supported by either a calculation, explanation, or even assumptions are outlined in the report. Number one. Number two, when CAG audit starts, CAG doesn't start the audit himself. There is an audit team. You know how the audit teams are treated by the executive department? They are not given accommodation, not given files. At best, I have seen instances where they are accommodated next to the toilets with stinking environment without giving files. There are few officers like you who welcome CAG's audits, who go interact positively with CAG officers and try to get some positive inputs and their contribution to improve things. Very few officers are there in the executive. Everybody wants to either delay audit or obstruct audit or obfuscate. This is the background. Now, with this situation, if CAG has given its report, number two, nobody gives replies to CAG. Right up to secretary level officers there are who don't bother. It's not in their priority. Simple. They are not. It's given to some joint secretary. He doesn't understand. Some director or under secretary handles. And matter when it comes beyond the head, then the secretaries, ministers, everybody start giving press conferences. So defending their action and finding faults in CAG. The last point I would try to make is CAG has never given hype after the report. CAG has, in fact, I remember CAG was very reticent to come to the press. Whatever CAG said, he said, I will say before the Public Accounts Committee or the Public Undertakings Committee. He never came out and said, I want to defend my coal report. No, I will do the defense in the appropriate forum, which is the Public Accounts Committee. Lastly, you may be surprised, why pick CAG alone for the hype? See, yes, there are controversial, conclusions or things, but you know, even these two reports, see, ultimately, as you rightly said, the PAC and Public Undertakings Committee are the final decision makers on the reports. Till date, there is no report of the PAC on either of the reports, the coal report or the 2G report. That is for many people don't know. And one more thing, see, as latest as 23rd August 2024, if I'm not wrong, Honorable Supreme Court has decided in a particular case that, you know, CAG's reports will acquire finality only when the Public Accounts Committee decides on the report and submits the report to Parliament. Till that time, CAG report is not final, has not acquired finality. In fact, this is a case where CBI is supposed to have done a roving inquiry and took some action suggested some action against some public sector company or some company outside in Karnataka. The matter went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court passed strictures on CBI, saying that they have no business to reproduce the CAG report and say it is concluded. CAG report is at best has to be dealt with by Parliament committees. So till that time, there is no finality. So technically, we are discussing a subject on which there is no finality, as per Honorable Supreme Court. So this all hype is created, according to me, to repeat, by the media and the political parties. Yes, giving 1,76,000 crores or 1,86,000 crores, there are many views even within the department. Should we have done that? Should we have not done that? What should have been the amount? But the argument in favor of that, I will tell you. Let me share this also with you. Let us take the coal report. You are more than knowledgeable about that than me. See, there is a word called windfall gains. Now, like presumptuous loss, this windfall gains is again borrowed from, of course, I will come to presumptuous loss a little differently later. This windfall gains is borrowed from the noting of no less than the secretary himself in the notings of the ministry. He himself said there are likely to be windfall gains through this allocation system. That is what we borrowed. That is the CAG department borrowed and printed in the report. So CAG says windfall gains. Actually, CAG reproduced only the secretary's conclusion. Similarly, presumptuous losses. See, presumptuous losses, since you are very much interested in this subject and have written books also, there is no such concept as presumptuous loss in any approved, acclaimed, or internationally accepted accounting standard that most of us will agree. But it is used, say, for example, in income tax department, in revenue department, where, you know, there is a concept of presumed income or deemed income. If that is not properly assessed and taken, then there is a deemed loss or a presumed loss. So the words exist in the parlance of, revenue audit, or in terms of, reporting the losses to the government. So that word is fine. But again, the point comes on the amounts. For the amounts, CAG at that point of time, on that particular day, he has given an explanation and justification why he did it, what assumptions he made. And I would like to conclude on this point from my side by saying one thing. If there are such glaring errors and grave misjudgments by CAG in his calculations or conclusions, what prevented the secretary or the concerned executive head at that point of time? There were opportunities for nearly 1 year or more, 1.5 years given to the department and the ministry to reply to those CAG's observations with the analysis you are now giving post hindsight. After the event, you are trying to defend now. So these arguments, why somebody like Mr. Anup Swarup is not there to defend and give these sort of reports and meet CAG. You have in fact met CAG in some of your reports, I remember. But where is the secretary who takes that initiative and got the confidence to meet CAG and discuss this and convince him? He is, after all, one of the senior officers of IAS itself.
You are absolutely correct, but one correction here. I think my predecessors raised these points. They are on record. It's there on the file.
Not in time. Definitely. CAG cannot wait for 2 years for a report to be published.
Let me explain this to you. This has been on record and not a part of the report. So this was raised. So it's not that they were not raised, but as I started the discussion, because of the hype that was created, and my question is not the report itself, because everyone has the right to present a report that he or she thinks, and there is a reason behind it. Absolutely no issue on that front. One may disagree, one may find faults, that's a different matter. It's the hype that was created that created all the problems. More in the context of administration. Now I'm coming very generally because I took over as Coal Secretary in 2014, and the environment that was created was so vitiated. So my concern is not as much as the CAG report. My concern was more as the consequence of what that happened. And that is why my personal view, there again, as you have your personal view, my personal view is that as a civil servant, our job is to do our job.
Absolutely.
Not go to town with it. Because sometimes going to town with a job that you're doing can create an environment as vitiated as I saw it in 2014. We may have a different opinion on whether that was right, wrong, calculations. I may have different calculations. But I think we would agree on the point that as a civil servant, the job is not to contribute to the hype. Obviously, I agree with you. Hype was certainly not created, but I think contributed by an institution that could have possibly avoided that. But thank you very much for this very, very interesting discussion. And those that are watching, जो लोग भी देख रहे हैं और जो सोच रहे होंगे ऑडिट एंड अकाउंट सर्विस ज्वाइन करना करें, बड़ा एक्साइटमेंट है. आपने इस एक्साइटमेंट को आज देखा होगा. आगे भी बहुत एक्साइटमेंट आएगा, लेकिन एक इसके साथ केविएट के साथ, ये एक्साइटमेंट से एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एडवर्सली इंपैक्ट नहीं होना चाहिए. ये मेरी व्यक्तिगत राय है. थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस, सेश कुमार. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
प्लेजर एंड प्रिविलेज. नमस्कार.
StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल.